All right, well, 12 hours and we're still offline. So we're gonna stow this thing, which is actually pretty cool. Stow. You ready for an adventure? It has been quite some time. Lots of updates. Living in Austin now. So far love it. I've been there for a little over 3 weeks. Right now we're headed to San Padre Island. Basically 60 miles of just dispersed camping. This is either the greatest or the worst idea I've had because it is Memorial Day weekend, but we got to test out this Starlink. So if you saw I had issues at home, it's because my balcony actually has basically a roof to it. However, we should have obviously clear view of the sky. So what I really want to know, is this going to be better than my Verizon hotspot plus the cell booster, which has been great so far, but here's the differences. Data caps. There's a lot of areas where when I'm real remote, like in Moab, I'm in canyons, I don't have any service even with the cell booster. The Starlink should have service anywhere where you have good visibility of sky. So this should really open things up. And again, that data cap and also speed. I'm really curious to test out the speed and see how that contrasts with the Verizon hotspot with the cell booster. Well, this is way busier than I anticipated, but there's definitely parking spots. This is all North Beach, and I think there's a South Beach that's actually in the park, which I can get to camp at, so we're gonna try to find that. All right, so this is confirmed. We're now in the park. He's like, yeah, if you just go on the sand, go as far as you want, wherever you want, it's free to camp. Have fun. This is gonna be fun. I'm excited. It's gonna be more secluded, so we won't have the energy of people around, but also, like, this is why we got the overland rig. Let's go have some fun and find a spot on the beach. Ocean's right here. Got a little bit of line of traffic up front. All right, the final view. Look at this. So the Starlink is actually hidden right behind the bed right now, secured, held up for the whole drive. It occurs to me the Starlink is water resistant because it's got to be outside, so let's try and set it up. All right, so we're very lovely wired inside to the AC. All right, so we're gonna unstow it. So while that is searching for a signal, which it's still doing, I think it's only appropriate that I go jump in the ocean for a little bit. It took about 5-10 minutes to connect. Right now we're getting about 100 megabits per second, so pretty happy with that. My cell service was non-existent until I turned on the cell booster. At that point, it turned into, I think, like two-ish bars, but I was still having issues uploading stuff. That's the initial quick go around. Honestly, I need to enjoy being at the beach today, so I'm gonna do that. But we'll do some more in-depth reviews tonight once the sun's getting down a little bit, so hang tight. We'll do some speed tests. I'll show you signal tests, everything else, how long it takes to acquire signal. Wiped out pretty good on the bike, so she's not so happy with it apparently, but I had fun. Just probably should be wearing a helmet, going 20 miles an hour and trying to do wheelies in the air, not wheelies, donuts in the sand, and I just flew over the handlebars. It's beer time. We're gonna climb on the top. I don't know if you guys can hear me right now. The new Final Cut feature, which is like voice isolation, works wonders, by the way. Like, this actually might sound good because of that. It is super, super windy right now. And doing this while holding a beer in the same hand I'm climbing up to the top with is probably not smart. We're doing it anyway. It's interesting, right? Love the beach, probably my favorite place on the world. Definite perception versus reality. If you can tell how windy it is, that's one. Sand goes with the wind is two. The Starlink, so I've moved it, I don't know, 5-6 times now, even just like the water line coming in. So I lifted it up, moved it over. Once it actually got signal now out here in the middle of nowhere, just maybe 3 minutes max before it acquires signal again, and you're right at 100 plus megabits per second. Speeds were great. Really, really impressed with the speed so far. It's so much faster. I'll show you guys the samples right now. Just phenomenally faster than my hotspot with the cell booster. Now, granted, sure, if you're in a city, if you're in a very good cell coverage area, yeah, like at that point, a hotspot might be better for you. But guess what? That's not why you're gonna get a Starlink anyway, right? The Starlink is so you have service anywhere you go, that you can see the sky. And I'm so happy because the unlimited, the fact that it does work pretty seamlessly, the setup, like having to carry that big dish around, having to plug it in outside of the van, run the wire inside, those are my only gripes so far. So if you look at something like a hotspot, right, you're gonna spend $200 to $300, maybe even $400 for the hardware itself. This was $700 for the Starlink, so yes, that's more, but I'd argue it's much more advanced hardware. You get the satellite dish, you get the router, kind of everything all in one. And then the other fact of that is the speed and the unlimited internet. So I'm paying $110 a month with Verizon right now for 150 gigs. I have unlimited bandwidth with this. So I don't have to worry about Zoom calls. I don't have to worry about streaming video, 4K, 2K, whatever the heck. Like, I can just do as much internet as I want anywhere. And that is the true essence of just being remote and traveling and van lifing and just not having to worry about it. Just knowing if you need internet, it's there. If you don't want to worry about it, you break down the satellite, boom. Now, sure, am I looking forward to when I can just have the satellite on the roof here and it's just gonna work seamlessly while I'm driving? As soon as I park, it's ready to go. Absolutely, but until that's capable, so far I'm really happy. And knowing Elon, they might upgrade this hardware to be compatible with something like that and just release a mount, or maybe whole new hardware, and hopefully they'll have an upgrade program, probably not, but you know what? Sometimes to be an early adopter, you can help this innovation, you can help these companies grow by being early adopters of this technology. And this is something which if you consider me an early adopter for Starlink for RVs, like very happy to support the cause. Look at all this sand. More sand, more sand, more sand, more sand. I mean, the view's pretty good at least. Ocean's right here. The tide actually did come in. I don't know if you can tell on video, but the windows are all coated in sand. Yeah, there you go. These are all coated in sand. Bike's coated in sand. Starlink's out there somewhere. Side steps are coated in sand. Starlink is alive and working. Yeesh. If you want to see how windy it is, the van was actually falling overnight because it was blowing the sand out from underneath the tires and it would readjust. Starlink survived. Oof. Cables hidden. It's like another world out here. I don't mean that in a good way. What this is all translating to is two things. One, I'm very impressed with the Starlink. Two, this trip's getting cut short. So we were only out here for a day. I think in the right conditions, this would have been amazing. Like right now, the water's 15 feet from the van. Ocean's right there, the water's super warm, but the reality is it's super windy, and I looked at the forecast and the entire day today and tomorrow are super windy. The problem in that at the van is I was able to run the air conditioning most of last night to kind of keep it cool. It's basically a hot box the whole time when the AC's not on. The problem with that is if I run the AC for too long, I'm gonna drain the battery out. So I would normally open the windows in this condition. It's only 85 outside. It was like 77 throughout the night, so it's not too bad. But because it's blowing so hard, one, it's super noisy, and then two, sand just fills up this place incredibly fast. Like as soon as I open this door, I just watch tons of sand fly in. And being hot, sticky, sandy, and the annoyance of all the wind, I don't think we're gonna deal with this. Starlink reality, so while I grabbed this from outside, already unplugged everything, and I threw this up in the cabinet, I realized the Starlink is not in stow mode. And so within the app, it actually has a mode where you click stow and it basically folds it down. I think it's mostly just so the pole is basically more or as flush as it can be with the dish, so it's easier to store, but also for safety, I don't know if it locks motors or something. It seems like you can just kind of grab it, but at this point then the pole's sticking straight out, so it's much harder to stow. And since I've been storing it back here, which I'll show you in a sec, I now need to basically plug everything back in to then put it in stow mode. So it's these things I'm sure over time I'll get used to, but also just to be aware of as you're dealing with this on RV or van life. Like if you need to pack up and go quickly, remember to put it into stow mode. Otherwise you're gonna have to plug everything back in, turn it into stow mode, and then put it wherever you want to store it. Throw the cables back there, and we're good to go. If you own a Storyteller or you have flare space, just hide her back there. I mean, this is pretty awesome on the drive out. Starlink for RVs, motorhomes, vans, whatever you want to call it. Is it worth it? The hardware costs a lot. Let's start there. The service so far, you definitely need a clear view of the sky, right? So if you have obstructions, I'll need to test it with trees and things like that. Definitely buildings are an issue. That could be problematic, potentially, depending on where you want to camp or have your RV. For me, hopefully that should never really be an issue. Speed, reliability, connection, everything there was rock solid. It worked really well. Wind, sand, everything seemed to be okay. No issues at all with the signal. Never lost signal, anything like that. And the speeds were very consistent. So I was overall very happy with that. Setup and breakdown, that is, it's a lot. I want to try to figure out a way maybe I can mount this to the roof permanently and just leave it on here. I've realized I'm not going to be using this at home, so it is going to be my portable option. I don't know with the motors inside, things like that, what's going to happen, if it can actually hold up. They make it sound like there's been some Elon tweets, which are very Elon, that make it sound like it might actually work even while you're driving. So if I can figure out a way to safely mount it and allow it to work without having to do that setup and breakdown all the time, that's for sure for me. But if not, if you're someone who's constantly moving spots or moving throughout the day and you need reliable internet between those, you may actually be better off with a hotspot if you're in areas where you would normally have cell service. The booster blew my mind when I got it. I was super happy with the booster. It just did so well because tons of spots I'd be at, I'd have 1, 2 bars, no bars. I turn that on and boom, I've got like 15 megabits per second, which is plenty reliable for most people, for most Zoom calls, for work, for streaming, YouTube, whatever you want to do. And so that for me was a very viable option. That said, like right now, I actually didn't have service, even just moving 10 feet to the left or the right with my booster, with my Verizon hotspot, and with my AT&T phone. A lot of times you have fake service where it shows you 1 or 2 bars, but if you try to load anything, it basically never works. You might get a little bit of data through here and there, but it's not reliable. It's not something that's going to really let you have internet. So the fact that I was just able to plug this in seems like once it started finding signal, it ever only took maybe like 1 to 3 minutes to require signal once I would actually move the satellite. So whether I like moved away from the water, changed spots, whatever, very quickly, 1 to 3 minutes to me, I don't think is bad for a satellite, quite frankly, especially when all you do is say, turn on, and that's it. Like, you don't have to try to find satellites. It does everything on its own. So I was very happy with that experience, other than having to set it up and break it down. The main downside with that is running the cables. Like, I'm slamming the door on the cables. It's going through the weather seal, so it shouldn't hopefully damage it, but I could see over time that might not be best for it. You can replace the cables, fortunately, so it's not a showstopper, but I think overall we need some more tests. I'm super happy. Let me just say, I'm trying to provide pros and cons to be a non-biased video. I recommend it. If you're doing true van life, if you're out on the road a lot, for me, this lets me know I can go anywhere now and I can work. I always had this anxiety of like, what if I go somewhere and the signal kind of sucks? You know, my cell booster's not working and I just drove 3 hours to get here and now I've got to go relocate. Maybe it's the perfect camp spot. This actually happened to me twice in Moab. I got 2 great camp spots and I had no service with the booster. And so I had to move because I was actually working from the van that day. So for me, it's totally worth it. $135 a month, when you compare that to mobile data plans, is actually reasonable. So that's another thing to call out. The price, I really don't think is bad. Plus you're getting the unlimited, right? So I have 150 gigs, which is a ton, but I have that little lingering thing in the back of my head like, oh, am I going to run out of data? Am I going to run out of data? Where with Starlink, you just don't even think about it. It literally feels like you're at home using internet, streaming video, 4K, whatever that is. So yes, it's getting a thumbs up for me. It's getting a recommendation for me. Again, hopefully I conveyed enough with the use cases and the pros and cons to make your decision if you want to buy it or not, but I'm super happy. This beast is just becoming such a mobile workhorse now. Like, I can just have reliable internet. I've got a 47-gallon diesel tank I installed on here, which I'll show you in a future video. I can pretty much stay off grid for a long time now. Water has probably become my lowest constraint on the bucket, and even for that, I have filters, so I can always refill on the road. So I really hope you all like this video, whether you're joining this for the Starlink review or if you've been following me for a while on my van life adventures. I know it's been a while. Life's been busy, but we'll be back out there a lot throughout the summer. Got a few more trips planned. And honestly, I'm going to be doing other content again too. So welcome to the adventure. That is why the channel is named Kyle Pugliese after me. I want to be flexible with the content. Let me know any questions you have below. Comments there for a reason. Thumbs up, subscribe, all the things if you like this content. And as always, it's been a pleasure. and I'll see you next time.